Welcome to our pod, and by that I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book episode. Whoa, I did not do that right. I thought I was on a roll, and then I completely botched it in the worst way possible.
Book episodes.
Book episodes. We are two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. Right now, we are finishing up our first part of season 4, which is Martha Wells' The Murderbot Diaries stuff. And we are having.
Is this season 4 or season 3?
Well, this is season 3. I'm so
This is
sorry.
season
My
3.
mind is. Laura
Season
and I
4
just
we're
said
getting into soon, very
yes.
soon.
Laura and I just admitted we both have upset stomachs, so I feel like we're both a little bit
We
out there.
have a little bit of other stuff going on in our minds at the moment.
So I'm just not here right now, apparently. And we also have like a deadline for like Laura has a hard out. So
Yeah.
we usually don't record with hard out. So I think between that, I'm just like, I cannot do this.
There's a
And this
little
wrong.
bit of pressure. I have something to go to, so we're on the clock.
We're on the clock. So yes, season 3 is Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells, and we are finishing up our discussion of Fugitive Telemetry.
Blah, 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 blah. It's a word.
It's a word, and it is the title of the book. But before we get into it, Laura, what are you reading, watching, and or enjoying?
So I'll admit I have not watched very many things this week because I had a baby goat that was sick, and then there was like a really bad storm that came through this weekend, and so it was a lot of stuff going on at home. I didn't have power for pretty much the whole weekend. I got it back last night, but surprised there's going to be more storms tomorrow that are going to be equally as bad, so I'll probably not have power again. Hopefully not. But I did read Verse, book 1 by Sam Beck. And this is, I would say it's a YA fantasy graphic novel. And at first, here's the thing. I cannot tell you why I enjoyed this so much, but it was a book that I flew through. And when I wasn't reading it, I was like, I kind of want to read it. But at the same time, it wasn't one where I was like, this is the best book ever. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Do you ever have a book like that where you're just like, this is nothing like wildly awesome, but I do really enjoy it and like reading it. So for me, it was a 4-star read, but it's about this magical world where they use, I guess it's not really even a magical world, but it's about this world where a verse is used to like channel magic, and that's the only way that they can channel this magic that they know of. And there's been these creatures called Vel that have these like horn-like projections on them, and they have been attacking people and causing a lot of problems. And there's also like this evil society that's trying to manipulate the Vel with verse to use them for their own bidding and everything for evil. But we end up meeting Fife, who wants to become like a blacksmith, a swordsmith, and he goes on an adventure to do this, leaves his small town or his village to do this, and he ends up meeting Nita, this girl who also has horns that look somewhat similar to like the Vel type horns. So every time they encounter anyone, of course they assume that Nita is Vel, but Nita is able to use magic without verse, so she's really unique, and everybody's like trying to figure out like what her backstory is and what's going on with her. And she has like all this memory loss, so she's unable to even explain why she can do these things, where she's from, who she is. She just knows like random things about herself that she's like, I know these things to be true, but that's it. So this was a really interesting graphic novel, but again, YA, and I wouldn't say it was like the greatest story, but I was very into it, and I was wanting to read it when I was not able to. So definitely kept my attention. I already have downloaded the second one on Libby, so hopefully I can get into that this week because that'll be fun. Also, I am 60% of the way through The Delve by Dan Fitzgerald.
Yay.
The Mayor. I think it's Mayor.
That sounds right. Yeah.
I think it's one of the Mayor cycle books. And also, if you, I don't know if the sale's still going on, but there was a sale going on with The Living Waters, The Delve, and another one of the Mare cycle books on Amazon. They were like all 99 cents. So if you're interested in any of those works, check that out because they are available there, as were a lot of other indie books for 99 cents. So check those out. But I am really liking The Delve. It's a very different fantasy book than I have read. Everything's taking place underground and there's a lot of action. And I feel like usually you don't get these type of characters. These are like the forgotten type characters, if that makes sense, in fantasy, where you focus more on like the Aragorns and you don't get as much of like the side characters. And to me, this is almost, I don't know if this is the way to describe this, but this is almost like a book where the side characters have become the heroes, and I really dig that.
I like that a lot.
And this may not have been the author's intention at all. I don't know what they were thinking or what they had intended when they wrote this, but Dan, if you are listening, reach out. But that's just kind of a vibe that I was getting, was that this book is almost a story about side characters and an adventure like that you would see them on. And a lot of the conversations and dialogue with them, they are having between each other, the characters, they're saying things like, of course that would have happened, they don't care about us or whatever, you know, the humans, and how things like other people's actions affect them. And I was like, yeah, this is really interesting to write it this way.
Yeah, that's
so
fun. I like it.
I am digging that.
Good.
But hopefully I'll have that done this week and then have a new review that can go up on our blog.
And if you guys are checking out our blog this week, we had a wonderful review by Laura of Jonathan Nevair's book,
Edge of the Sun.
Yes. So make sure that you are heading over to our blog to read all of our wonderful reviews for Indie Palooza, because even though March is over, it doesn't mean that we have stopped reviewing the books that we read during that time. So
exactly. We have still not finished. I'm still in Indie Palooza mode.
Yay for Indie Palooza.
And moving on to other things that I've been watching, but I don't know if I've been enjoying it this much this season. Love is Blind. I watched the first set of episodes that they released, and this cast is a lot harder to become interested in for me. And I think the show has reached a point where people just go on it to achieve the level of fame. And I feel like the first couple seasons, people were legitimately getting into it because, or if they were not doing this for genuine reasons, they were very good actors, but they were getting into it just because they're kind of, I don't want to use the word desperate, but these were people in the first couple seasons that you could tell had a really hard time with relationships in the past and everything. And they were really wanting to try and find love and were willing to go on Love is Blind to do it. And that's kind of the impression that I got from the cast members in the first couple seasons. Again, they could have been really good actors and also just been in it for the fame. But at this point in season 4, the people are literally in this just, not all of them, but a lot of them seem to just be in this to get the notoriety. And they're getting it because some of these people on this show are just plain mean. They say to each other, like, it's just a game show or whatever. And I'm like, okay, you're messing with people's emotions. There are a couple of girls that are on this show that literally are just mean girls in all shapes and forms. Like, I don't know another word to describe them.
Yeah, I've heard that about this girls. Season.
And the way that they treat the other women that they are interacting with is extremely petty and childish. It's cringy to watch. I do not like it. And then one of them matched up with a man and he proposed to her. And when they met each other face to face, she was like incredibly rude to him. And then they went on a vacation in Mexico with all these other couples and everything, like their honeymoon. And she continued to be incredibly rude to him and went on to say that she found another one of the contestants very attractive, and she was like obviously flirting with him in front of people. It was just very cringy. This woman, she told this guy that she had just been proposed to, like or had just proposed to her. They had just gotten engaged. They meet for the first time, and he's like staring at her because he kind of came off as like a nerdy guy to me, like a little bit socially awkward. And he was like staring at her, and I think it was just like excited, like, oh my gosh, trying to put together like a face with the voice or whatever. And you could tell, was very uncomfortable with the way that he looked. And she said to him, "You look like a cartoon character." And and the way that she reacted to him, she says stuff like, "I'm just very blunt. I'm just very honest. And I get it that a lot of times like women have to be a little bit more forward and this kind of thing because we are bulldozed when we're trying to say things or get out ideas, this or that. But the way that she tries to twist that around and just use it to be like, I get to be this way because I'm a woman. It's like, no, you're just being mean. That's
such a very specific style of person. Because I mean, like, I've probably been.
Do you know
guilty
what I'm saying though? About
I've definitely been guilty of this in my life before. Like, full disclosure to everyone, like, I was sometimes a terrible person, and I remember being like, I just like telling it like it is in college, and it's just like, no, you're just kind of a dick. Like, you're not actually being polite or thoughtful or nuanced about anything. You're just shooting your mouth off when you have no business talking, and you think that you have a right to because you're 19 and or in this person's case, much younger, 23 or 4. And like on the show, and like also, I will say, I don't know how Love is Blind as much, but I know some of those, like the production companies, they've talked about like they plow them with alcohol, so they're constantly hammered.
They do that on this too.
Okay, so they're constantly drunk. Great. They're constantly like in a bad like position, really. Mm-hmm. So I do like, not in her defense, but I do think production companies like push the agenda a little bit, and as time goes on, I think Love is Blind will get worse and worse and worse because I do
agree with that, and I do think that they also like manipulate footage that they have to create villains. However, there are just so many instances of these particular girls being very mean and petty, and it just seems like too much to be manipulated, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I don't like it. And again, just her trying to say like, you know, I am used to men talking over me, this or that or whatever. And that's why and she even says to him at like one point, like, I'm not done talking. And I get it. Like, that's okay in certain situations for people to like say, I'm not done talking or whatever, especially if that's something that bothers you. But these interactions that she's having with this guy, it was not a situation where he was trying to dismiss things she was saying or bulldoze her feelings or anything like that. She was just kind of being mean and using her excuse of, I'm a woman, I'm sick of being like people not listening to me, so I get to be very blunt. And it's like, that's not
mean. How this works. You're just being a terrible person. Yeah.
That makes sense. I have not enjoyed this season at all. The third season, I was starting to become less interested because a lot of the men in the cast were terrible. Mm-hmm. And they had a lot of very problematic views on things and everything. And it was really cringy to watch some of these couples like try to interact and talk through like potential life situations that get tricky because they just had bad views. But also in those situations, it's still interesting to watch reality TV. But I'm really losing it on season 4. I haven't watched any of the second set of episodes, but I'm unsure if I'm going to.
I get it.
I'm going to text Veronica of Ronnie Reads regularly because she also has been watching this. I think she's started the second set of episodes, but I'm not feeling it, you guys. I'm not.
Well, that's a shame.
I mean, it's okay. I'll find another show. The circle will be back.
Oh, good. Yes, it will eventually.
Hannah, what have you been reading and watching?
So I've kind of been in my reading slump era. I don't know why I keep using the term era. I feel like I've just heard that Taylor Swift has gone on tour and just everything's been thrown out the window.
That's the connection.
It's because I listened to a podcast where someone made fun of era, and I realized I've been using it in my lexicon for like ever.
Here's the thing. So people who were using seasons for the longest time, they were saying the season of life that you're in.
Right.
Enjoy this season. Every time I hear it now, I'm just like, ugh, quit saying that because it just got overused. And now I'm worried that it's going to happen to Era because everybody has been saying Era all the time. I'm guilty of it too.
I know. So, but I have been listening to a ton of audiobooks. So I listened to Bernardine Evaristo's Girl, Woman, Other. It was I believe it was a Man Booker Prize award-winning novel. And it was
spoiler, you gave that to me in my birthday books.
I just
opened it.
Oh, you just opened it? Okay. Yeah. I was keeping it a secret because I didn't know if you had opened it or not yet. So spoiler,
I haven't read it though.
It's okay. Well, a peek into your future. Laura, I freaking loved this book. It was so good. Like I picked it up for you because I knew it was like award-winning and I was like, oh yeah, I bet it's like good. And you know, and it's like, it's about intersectional, it's about intersectionality. It's about Black women. It's about transgender people. And it's this novel that jumps from different people throughout it. So in one section, you'll read about this feminist playwright who's kind of getting older in her years. And then you jump to her daughter. And then you jump to the woman who helped build the woman's play company with her. And then you jump to and you just jump around from person to person to person, getting a little bit of insight into their lives. Similar to The Secret Lives of Church Ladies, but different because this is a much longer book. But it was and it's based in Britain. She's a British author. So I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was very beautifully written. There were parts of it that I had to rewind so I can listen to them as clearly as possible. And it's a book that I definitely would want to revisit in my life. I could feel very good rereading it once every couple of years. I love books
that you read and you're like, I want to reread this at some point.
Yeah. And I don't need to read it right away, but there was something about it that just really sat with me. And I really enjoyed it. I just thought the author did a beautiful job of finding whole people. And I also like that they're as a transgender non-binary person in this novel, and we jump to their they might end up going by he him, but I cannot remember, so I'm going to use they pronouns to be as inclusive as possible. But you jump to one of their older relatives, and the relative is I don't really care. I just find I don't really care that they changed their name. I just can't get the pronouns straight. And it's just so beautiful to jump to different people who are accepting when they can be, but find their it's a very human look into flawed human beings. And those are my favorite type of character studies. And in this book, I thought it was just so well done to jump into someone's perspective and find out there are certain people there who are I'm just the biggest feminist, but I don't understand this. And you realize we're all just huge hypocrites, which is a huge belief that I have is the world is full of hypocrites. He without sin cast the first stone. And this was definitely a book that showed that. And so it was wonderful to listen to. And I can't wait to kind of grow with this book and come back to it time and time
awesome.
Again. So yeah, Laura, I'm glad I bought it for you, and I can't wait for you.
So I opened a handful of them over the weekend when I didn't have power. Because I was like, what can I do right now? I will open some of my birthday presents. Perfect. And so I recorded videos of me opening them, and I was not going to just post 6 in one day. So I'll spread it out.
Any favorites that you opened that excited you?
Well, that one was one that was exciting to me.
Oh, okay.
I did open one that I've already read.
Oh no, which one?
The girl with the dragon tattoo.
Oh, dang it. I had looked on your Goodreads, but I think maybe I had said I think I didn't realize you read that, but my bad. But it's a good book.
It's a good book. I read it in college. It was one I was on the livestock judging team in college, so I spent a lot of time in a van, and I read a lot on my Kindle, and that was one that I read.
Well, it wasn't on your Goodreads, so it's not my fault.
I mean, I'm not the greatest at Goodreads, so every now and then I'll come across a book that I read a long time ago. I'm like, oh yeah, I did read this.
So now you can mark it. But
Yes,
that's the
I'll have
first
to
time
mark
I
it.
think that's happened, besides the fact that you read a book and I was like, hey, open this book because you definitely
Right.
got it. But
But I
I'm
do
glad
enjoy
you.
that one. So
Oh, good. So I picked well still. Well, I'm glad you liked those two, and I can't wait to see the videos of you
yeah, I'll
in
put
the
them up on my
dark.
Bookstagram. So
And then I also read via audiobook True Biz by
okay.
Sara Novic. I really liked this book. I thought it was very well done, and it was interesting to read because it is True Biz is about about a school for the deaf.
Mhm.
And it jumps from three different characters. One is the principal of the school, who was coda, so she was a
Mhm.
child of
Of deaf adults.
deaf adults, and two children, one who had like a botched hearing aids put into her ears, and so she
Mhm. Like a cochlear
is
implant or
yeah,
actual hearing aids?
well, a cochlear impact. She had a
Okay.
botched one when she was younger,
Okay.
but her parents didn't teach her how to speak via sign language because they
Okay.
wanted her to only rely on the cochlear implant or speak. And now she is in high school, and she is very like undereducated because she couldn't understand school, and her father gets her into this school, so it's about her experience coming into a school where she is for the first time learning how to communicate. And
This sounds
then
fascinating.
yeah, and then the other perspective is a boy who has one parent who is hearing, but his entire maternal side of his family are all deaf,
Mhm.
and so he never learned to speak well. Like he never like learned how to
Sure.
communicate via spoken English. He only signs, and so it's like a very fascinating like because he doesn't see the hearing area,
Mhm.
and he has lived his entire life going to this school for the deaf, and so he's kind of seen as like royalty in the school because of like
Sure.
his pedigree and his family and how like integral they are into the deaf community. And so it's a very unique book, and it was very nice to listen to it via audio because it made you think about
Sure.
the fact that
The fact that you're listening to it.
and like
Sure. How
and
interesting.
the author uh, she um she had the audio narrator whenever people were signing.
Mhm.
In the book they let you know that they have the hand motions in the book for you to look at
Oh,
as
okay.
people are communicating with each other to make sure you understand what like this is a
Mhm.
different form of communication. And in the book it was very interesting because she had the person signing make the like you heard the sound of the hands moving
Oh,
for the
okay.
communication. So it was kind of just making sure you understood that like this is a different form of
This is a different
communication.
language. Like,
And like, yeah, exactly. And so I really liked that. I thought that added a lot to the book.
right.
And I will say that like I did give this book a 5 stars. I think the ending was a little bit kind of a letdown for me because it
Mhm.
just kind of felt like it just ended suddenly.
Sure. But sometimes
Um,
books are like so monumental that they deserve 5 stars, even
yeah,
if they like kind of rush the ending. And
yeah, and
this
that was
sounds like one of them.
yeah, I was just like, yeah, I don't know. This book is like it's amazing. It's really good. So yeah, I'm gonna do that. And
Willing to overlook that.
exactly. Sara Novic is a deaf novelist,
Okay.
and she is a deaf rights activist. So her
Cool.
writing this book is just like very key in everything. So I highly suggest people read this book.
Yeah.
Read it in whatever format, but like I did like listening to it via audio. It was
Did you ever
very, very
watch the TV show on Netflix, Deaf You?
good. No.
So that was a really interesting TV show to me. I don't know if it is one that like is well representative of like all deaf experiences, but it was about a university where they followed around a bunch of it was like documentary style where they followed around a bunch of deaf students.
Mm-hmm.
And I was fascinated to see how like deep the deaf community was, and how you were saying like in that book like there's like legacies and stuff that exist, and I would have never have known something like that. But in
Mm-hmm.
this university, and I think it's probably because there are so few opportunities for people to go on to higher education, in order to like receive the services that they need, that they have to go to special places like this, specialized schools and things like this, that there are legacies that exist and all this. But like within this university, there were certain people that were considered legacies, and they were kind of more important, and people that signed in different ways, or if they spoke or could hear a little bit because of implants, they were kind of treated differently. And it was like fascinating to me that there were all these different dynamics of this, but also it made total sense. Sense.
Well, and like in this book definitely goes into that, because like the professor who runs the school, like at one point her wife is upset because like she finds out that she had a former relationship with one of the teachers there. And she's like, well, I want you to find someone else. And she's like, you go find someone who is fluent in sign language, who can teach the history of the United States. Like, go find me someone. And it's just like, there are certain like access points that like, it does make it more difficult. And like, I really enjoyed this book, and the Charlie character, who has never been able to speak before, having to learn at like an older age, and the frustration she had. And it talks a lot about like the frustrations that you get when like, it kind of goes into how she used to have outbursts in school, and she was kind of criticized as like a quote unquote problem child. And it's just like, well, imagine not being able to communicate.
Imagine how frustrated she is. Like, oh.
And I will say like some issues with the book. Her mother is not very supportive of her learning how to sign, and she wants her to still rely on the cochlear implants, even though they are harming her. And so there is a little bit of a trigger warning for that. Yeah, exactly. And that's like, this book is very good, but a small warning for that, because if you're having difficulties, not even with that specific, but with any parents, like I could see it being very hard to listen to, because it was hard for me to listen to.
I would also like to mention too that and if anyone listening can add more information to this, I would really be interested to know more about it. But I had just learned something recently, and I am within my own little bubble and trying to learn more myself. So I apologize that I have not tried to seek out this information before, but I was learning that a lot of parents, especially parents who do not have English as their first spoken language, find it so difficult to have communication with a child a deaf child, and or hard of hearing. So because sign language is so based on the English language, so it's extremely difficult to communicate, and a lot of people have to basically learn two languages in order to communicate with a child or a family member or a loved one. And I had never thought about that before, and I was embarrassed that I had never thought of that, but it's such a thing. And if anyone can provide more information on that, or if there are other forms of communication that deaf people use besides just lip reading or writing or sign language, I'd be really interested to know about that.
Well, and that's like, it's a good point, because that's also an American sign language. Like it's an American focus, but there are different sign language, like systems for different countries and everything. So it is different if like you have to learn American Sign Language and you do not speak English as your first language. It's like you're translating two different steps away from what you're used to. I will also say that like lip reading is incredibly ineffective in a way that like hearing people never thought. And that was like something I learned from like Only Murders in the Building, where like the deaf character in that hands out a card where he's like, I'm not fluent in lip reading. I only hear I only understand about 60% of what you're saying to me. And like in one of the episodes, like Selena Gomez keeps trying to talk to him, and I'm like, he can't understand you. Like, write it down more. I understand it's frustrating, but like, you cannot just act that way. And it was like one of the episodes.
Well, and a lot of times you have to be with her. Like, I also think too, people don't realize like if somebody's going to be able to lip read, you have to be looking directly at them all the time. You cannot turn away. And like, I know that people don't try to be inconsiderate when they think somebody's lip reading, but there's no way that somebody who hears it can be completely considerate of somebody who is hard of hearing and be directly facing them all the time in order to allow them to lip read. Is just not possible.
Exactly. And so, yeah, it's a very interesting topic of conversation. And I've seen like a couple TikToks where like there are certain, there's one TikTok I follow where they did end up getting her cochlear implants, their daughter, and she can utilize them quite effectively,
Mhm.
but they've also learned sign language in order to communicate with her. And like, they also, like, I've seen a lot of TikToks that are a lot more open about like, hey, even if you have cochlear implants, like, you need to have planned times for your children's ears to rest because it is a lot on them and you can't just rely on them. So like, they use sign language. And a lot of people in the comments are like, I'm sorry, I'm sobbing over here because like, my parents were never able to communicate with me like this. And like, you're giving your children so much more support than you understand by like trying to make sure you communicate with them. And and like the parents that I've seen on TikTok are like, why wouldn't we want to communicate with our daughter in the most effective way possible for her and for ourselves? So it's a very interesting topic of conversation. And it was a very
I
good
know
book.
sign language also is not just something for the hard of hearing or deaf community, that other people do utilize American Sign Language, because like my own sister, when she was born, my parents were unsure whether or not she'd be able to speak. So my mom went and took sign language classes, and my sister still to this day will occasionally sign things that she learned as a baby.
Yeah.
It's still a part of her vocab. So
there's an episode of, oh my gosh, what is it called? I think it's called like Love Stories. It's one of those shows on Netflix, but they have a scene where it's two people signing about their sex life. And this woman comes over and she's like, excuse me, but my children speak sign language. So could you please stop talking about your private sex life like in public? Cause people can understand you. And like the kids are like running around, like signing the P word.
That's amazing.
Like, I always think about stuff like that because like a lot of children do learn certain, like it's become like an effective way to communicate with babies early on and I also love it because like people talk about like in this book, they talk about like signing and they call it babbling because that's what it is. They're like, oh yes, the baby is learning how to sign pretty early. She's babbling like, and it's like, oh good. Cause that is babbling as well. So I really liked that book. Definitely listen to it. And they have like good little inserts to teach you a little bit about the sign language and everything. And there's like, they even talk about like how sign language is different in the Black community in America versus the white community. And at one point, like one of the white students makes fun of a Black student saying like, that sign looks like you're saying diaper. And she's like, hey, that's racist. Like you can't just make fun of my sign just because it's different than yours. Cause guess what? American education was segregated for a long time. And so that didn't just stop because people needed other access points. So
yeah, that's fascinating.
I know. So it was a good book. And then for watching, I watched School Spirits. It's a Paramount Plus original because I currently have Paramount Plus, and I really wanted to watch Yellow Jackets first because it's Showtime and it's on Paramount Plus right now. But then I was like, that's gonna be a big old bummer. But I still watched a show about murder. But it's about a girl who dies in her high school. And she gets trapped there with all these other dead students from years past. And she doesn't remember how she died. She just knows she was murdered. And so she's trying to find out who murdered her, and she's kind of fixated on it. And like a lot of the other students in the school are like, you have to be careful because like if you get too stuck, you can get stuck in a loop and kind of go insane. And then like you need to like move past this. Like it's not going to stop the fact that you died, but like she still needs that closure. And so through it, you find out like she can communicate with one of her friends in very specific spaces. And she can't leave the school and she's just stuck with these people. And it was a ton of fun. The season's not over yet. I think I have a guess who murdered her based on like the themes of the show. And I kind of knew from the beginning, except they did do a good job of like pushing you off the trail a little bit. But for a while I was like, I think it's this one person. Then I kept coming back to them. So, and I think I'm probably right because there's only like a couple more episodes left in the season, but so far, it's a ton of fun. It's a romp. I
do enjoy shows like that where there's a situation where it's like, you can't remain in this loop too long. Otherwise something's going to happen. Like, I don't know why that kind of like gets me.
Well, it kind of puts stakes on it. And that's like, it's a very interesting thing because like one of the people in the show like kind of like wants her to like move forward in her like new afterlife, as it were. And she's kind of like, hey, I died 2 weeks ago and you're like from decades ago. So could you maybe give me a break? Like, I don't need to do this right now. But everyone else is like, well, you can't take too much of a break because like lots of people get stuck in their own time loop. But it's a very funny show. It's very funny the way they like do some of it, because like ghosts can bring an object into the metaphysical world for like a certain amount of time.
That's cool too.
And so like, but it still stays in the real world. So like there are moments where they're like knocking over stuff and tearing up crap, but it all is still intact in the real world. So that's kind of fun to watch happen. And so it's a very good show. I'm enjoying it a lot. And then I get to watch Yellow Jackets next, which is going to be a big old bummer, but I'm going to love it. I have a feeling. But yeah, so those are what I'm reading, watching, and I like that. I was like, both of us were kind of like, we haven't really done anything. And then we went into huge tirades for like 10 minutes each. I'm like, well, then I watched this, and then I watched this, and then I watched this. So maybe you and I have just had a very stressful last week.
Yeah, I think we've just been able to block out so much because the last week's been crazy.
It's been crazy. But
do you ever think about that Parks and Rec episode where they're trying to act out the skit for the snake juice?
Are you talking about that's the best episode of Parks and Rec ever? And I just got to
think about Ron Swanson reading that and saying crazy.
And I want to get crazy. It's crazy. Crazy.
Well, at first he says crazy.
Oh, crazy.
He says, I want to get crazy. And he's like, it's crazy.
Crazy.
I want to get crazy. And it's
I am rewatching Parks and Rec with my boyfriend right now, and he's never seen it.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
We were about to be done and like read for the night, and I was like, oh no, this is the best episode of the series, and I made him watch the snake juice. I just love that episode so much. I've never been this hungover in my life. Really? I feel great. I ran a 5K this morning. Really? No, I puked in the shower.
Amazing.
Jan, please come back. I know I know you're not the only guilty one in this matter.
Anne shows up with her sweater inside out and backwards.
Oh my gosh, that's not great. She comes out. Why are you wearing? Are you in a snowsuit? Yeah, I wanted to go sledding. And he like looks out at the lawn, and it's just perfect green. Yeah, it's a good show. But yes, let's get crazy. And dive into Fugitive Telemetry.
Fugitive blah 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 blah.
Fugitive Telemetry.
Will not say that word.
You won't say telemetry?
Just because I can't.
I refuse to say that word because I cannot. Yeah, so many different things. Have you ever seen a word and been like, I don't know how to say that, and I will not learn how?
Yes, all the time when I'm reading. Also, when I'm reading, I saw somebody post something about this on Bookstagram, I think, where they said something like, don't make fun of the way that people say words if it's like a bigger word or something like that, like, because they likely taught it to themselves reading. Right. And I was like, that is so me, because I do that all the time. And I used to do that all the time as a kid, where I would read a word and be like, oh yeah, it's this. And then I would hear somebody say it like the correct way and think, oh, okay.
Right.
Oops.
Well, I was listening to FTF, and they were talking about like a very specific type of book brand, which is the Bildungsroman. And they were like, how do you say it? And I was like, honestly, I don't know how to say it. And I just had to look up how it was pronounced, because like that's one of the many things where it's like, it's supposed to be it's a type of genre in fiction where it's like the story of a person's life from like beginning to like middle age, kind of or it's a novel dealing with one person's formative years or spiritual education, and it's called a Bildungsroman. And they were like, I think it's called the blind and I was like, I couldn't tell you, and I'm fascinated by that word, so that made me think of it, where it's just like, I don't know how to read that, and I won't learn. I will say it correctly here, where I looked at the pronunciation, and in a week I'll be like, the blinds Roman thing, and it's like, no, Hannah.
That is me with Fugitive blah blah blah.
Blah, blah, blah. Rewatching the Mindy Project, which surprisingly doesn't hold up as well. It kind of goes more towards the Office sides of things than to the Parks and Rec side of things.
And it's a newer show than Parks and Rec. Is it not?
Yeah, I think a lot of it deals with the fact that they try to make Mindy the butt of the joke too often.
Mindy tries to make Mindy the butt of the joke too often, and it's kind of like, no.
Yeah, and there's like a lot resting on like the belief that she is a fat woman, and she just isn't. Not. She is a normal sized woman, and she points that out too, but like no one in the show treats her that way, and so it gets kind of gross.
A lot of times those jokes directed at her are really off kilter because it's like nobody else really makes it seem like they had thought that, and then Mindy will continually bring it up, and you're just like, no one said that.
Well, and for a show that like knew it was going to be a streaming show, they didn't have they treated it like it wasn't created in the time of streaming. So like some of the stuff Danny Castellano does to be a future love interest is horrific. Yeah. Like rewatching it, I'm like, no, I'm sorry, you don't come back. Like in one episode, like the joke is he thinks she slept with another doctor when she's engaged, but really the doctor slept with his ex-wife.
Yeah.
And she's covering up for it. And so the joke is supposed to be this miscommunication, but then he calls Mindy, he practically calls her a whore. Ooh. And it's like, I'm sorry, you can't tell me that this is supposed to be her future love interest. Like he just called her a whore. That's horrifying. Like you can't do that and then be like, well, it's a joke. Like it's not a joke. That's not funny. That's just treating a woman in the workplace really inappropriately. Like so
that show does not hold up well. It honestly has so many like 90s show vibes, like comedy, like rom-com from the 90s and early 2000s vibes that I think that's what Mindy Kaling really loves and wanted to turn something.
And that's
like, and that's okay, I guess, but
it's okay. I think she gets crapped on too much, but like, I'm not talking about the stuff that she normally gets crapped on for. But there was a funny moment where this is again a joke that doesn't hold up, but it made me laugh. Along the lines of like, I'm not going to say that word, but Tamra, one of the nurses, Mindy comes back from Haiti, and she goes, "They went to go see that one doctor who used to work here," and he's like, "Mindy?" And she goes, "No, I think her name was Glob." And he's like, "No, it was Mindy." And she's like, "I'm pretty sure it was Glob." And I'm like, okay, that's her line reading of it is what makes it funny.
Oh my gosh.
But that's what I've been thinking of for days now. I think her name was Glob. No, I'm pretty sure it was Glob. But yeah, that's a rough show.
That's one I don't think I could really rewatch.
I
do enjoy I do enjoy
the Roger.
Decipher that. I do enjoy Morgan on that show, how weirdly he does everything, but at the same time I think his brother on Superstore does it just as well. So, and is a little less problematic in the whole show. So
his brother once retweeted me because I tweeted on my personal account like, I've been watching Superstore and being like, that guy looks like so much like Morgan from the Mindy Project. They are brothers. That is why. Brothers. And he retweeted it.
That's amazing. He's also on American Auto. I've watched a few episodes of that. That's pretty funny too.
Okay. We've gone off on so many tangents.
Okay.
Lots of shows
back to
the
Murderbot Diaries number 6.
That's I'm just trying every which way to get Laura to say telemetry or telemetry.
It's not happening.
Laura, what did you think of this book?
So I thought this was a breath of fresh air, honestly. I was kind of worried because we were getting into a trend where it was going to be another addition into the Murderbot Diaries where everything is very similar. And I have really been enjoying it, but I'm at a point where I'm like, I needed a little something different. And this was it. This was kind of scratching like that murder mystery, Viviana Valentine itch. And this was so much fun, honestly. I love how witty Murderbot is. It's really good at solving murder mysteries, even when it forgets about them and towards the end. And I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of a romp, actually.
Who did the murder? I forgot we were doing
that. I forgot I had to do that.
Well, did
Hannah,
you?
What did you think overall of it?
I really enjoyed this book. I agree with you. I think like for a while, Murderbot's kind of been going on its own identity search, kind of that kind
and
of.
Can I just
go
jump
ahead.
in real quick? Here's my thing. I think that is awesome that Murderbot has been
Yes.
doing all of that identity searching and soul searching and trying to figure out like all these things from its past. And then we're also getting like these little nuggets of like colonization and all these other things. However, they're never like really like dove into, like, and I kind of think that that's a novella thing that they're like Martha likely is not going to get too deep into some of those topics. They're just going to be kind of scratched upon, leaving us wanting for more so we can keep getting novellas. And I kind of think that's why I preferred this murder mystery, just to kind of have a little break from that, because I have wanted a little bit more of that deep stuff and we haven't really got it as much, and it wasn't happening, if you know what I mean.
I definitely agree with that take so much, because I said the last book just didn't really hit for me because it just kind of felt like a longer version of what we had read before. And I was kind of like, well, if we're going to be doing something new and have a full length novel, I really want to do the deep dive. And it still felt like we were only touching on things, which is fun for like a thematic talk, which is why you and I usually love talking about the themes of Murderbot, because there's so much rich text in like a paragraph. But like, with this one, it felt so new and right for like moving forward with the story, because kind of trying something new. It's trying something new with Murderbot, because like I think Murderbot is such an interesting character in and of itself that like you don't need to have every single book be like, I need to go on a search for my own personhood in this world. Like sometimes it's just fun to be like, Murderbot is a construct living in this universe, and that is interesting in and of itself. So just throw it into a new situation and see how it works. Like, and that's.
I also think this is definitely a thing where it was kind of like Martha Wells cracks knuckles, writes a murder mystery.
And I don't know. It was really good. I also like that, like it's still, although it was something new and a breath of fresh air, it was still something interesting. Like you still got all the talk about like refugees and trying to get people off a mining facility that had been there for too long.
That existed, and how people were being born into this slavery, and how they were trying to shuttle people off of this ship so that they could get freedom. And yet all of that is fascinating.
And I really like that Martha because Martha's been slowly touching around that for a long time. Like, hey, Murderbot knows that it had a better bag than a lot of other humans in the world, because they have to have these like contracts on them, which is slavery. And this is showing like, and I do love that Murderbot found itself on a facility that is like horrified by all of this going on, but is also shocked that it happens. And Murderbot's sitting there like, you guys had to have known. And like none of them do, because they like kind of live in a utopia. But Murderbot's like, okay, well, that's on you. That's not like the world is going to act this way because that's the way the world is. But like these are the facts. And that Murderbot, like, weirdly enough, is it's an entity that sees the horrors of the world, but we love it because it still stays positive. I mean, like, no, it's not exactly positive. It's very pessimistic, but it has a lot of
realistic hope.
Yes.
It can see all of the things as they are, if that makes sense, where there are moments of hope, and it takes joy in like really small things, such as TV shows and rewatching TV shows and watching all sorts of media. But at the same time, it will realize like, yeah, people really suck. And I can't believe you didn't realize that there's all sorts of slavery and all these things happening in the world. Like, you guys need to be a little more aware. And also at the same time be like, this is awesome that I just can kind of do what I want to do now. I don't have to do this. I can get like cards for payment now to just do things that I want to do. And also that it tries to gain its own independence is something fascinating in and of itself.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that like it can talk to people and be like, hey, the way, like, I love how petty it is, even though it doesn't want to be petty. Like, it wants to be above it all. It wants to be like, I'm incredibly like strategic and logical. But the second someone like offends it, it's like, oh God, I have to deal with this person now. And it's like, Murderbot, you're so petty. Like, you can't handle this. And it's because Murderbot has all the feelings in the world. It can just be practical about the world it's living in. But like in and of itself, it, like, loves and cares deeply. And I do, it's so fascinating to watch it interact because like it wants to be the hard, like focused gumshoe of a character in this book, but then it's like, oh gosh, I have to go save everyone. And I'm offended that I have to work with this person who doesn't like me. And I just want to watch my shows and get over it.
How many times has Murderbot said, I don't care? And we have both said, Murderbot, you care the most.
You care so much, which like, oh, gosh, I just feel like Murderbot's kicking itself with who the murderer ended up being. Because like, it's sitting there like turning around and be like, whoa, when did you get here? And then at the end of it, it's like, you were the murderer all along.
What do you even do? You can't even move these things.
That's not its job, Murderbot. And it's just like, you've got to be kidding me.
So I read a synopsis on NPR of Fugitive blah blah blah, and they described Senior Inda as the Barney Fife that from like the Andy Griffith show. Yeah, that Murderbot is extremely annoyed by, and at first I was like, well, I think Senior Inda is a little more like with it than that, but then I was kind of thinking about it, and I thought, well.
Not really.
I guess not. And I guess Murderbot is pretty hard on Senior Inda and does complain about how often Inda's bad, like messing stuff up.
Well, that's because like Murderbot will like do all the research and then Inda's coming in and it's like, she's like, I would have figured it out at the end. And Murderbot's like, okay, sure. You're walking out of the room.
I don't know why I was just kind of like, no, I think Senior Inda is a little more competent. And I think maybe it's just because it was like a construct is so many steps ahead that I was just thinking I was giving Inda too much credit, whereas I should have just been a little more towards Murderbot's side and been like, come on, get with it here.
Well, and maybe that's also because we're reading this, like this is the like sixth book we've read of Murderbot. Murderbot is often paired with an incompetent person, but usually the incompetence is putting them in a situation they've never been in before, which is technically what Inda is in. But Inda is also a professional, and this is supposed to be her job. So I do think like NPR is right where they're like, no, Inda is an incompetent investigator. Yeah. And that's bad in this book. Like it can't be like Dr. Mensa in the first book, who is like an exploration like person who's like not into political espionage, but you could also argue Mensa is a political leader, so should have known. But like, and then you have her daughter who's like in a new situation. You have these other people who got in over their head. So I think sometimes we're watching lots of incompetent people, but they're incompetent in a situation they shouldn't be well versed in. Where so this might be the first
like a well-meaning person that doesn't consider all of the situation.
Right. And I think Inda is that character here where it's like a well-meaning person, because in the end you find out like, oh, she's really not that bad. Yeah. She just didn't trust Murderbot because Murderbot's a construct. Was murder. Yeah. And I mean,
it had murdered people, but
not this one. But also like Inda is saying like, yeah, I had to investigate and I did think it was you, but I thought it was you because of something with Gray Chris. Yeah. Like she's still not saying like, she's saying like, we don't believe in murdering people, so we thought you might have to like save, like it might have been if it was a Gray Chris person,
you would have murdered them. And Murderbot's like, fair enough, I might have.
Yeah, it's like, fair, you're right. That is a plan I had, and so you caught me. But yeah, it's hard to like put. Yeah, I feel like NPR is being too hard on Inda, but that's only because we've read so many books where so many other people are like Inda.
And also, I don't always trust Murderbot as a narrator to be the most reliable, because Murderbot, even though it is a being that will give the situation very accurately for what has happened, so much of its own spin and how it feels things should have happened or gone down play into the narration that it prevents me from getting total accuracy.
You think Murderbot's an unreliable narrator, Laura?
Yes, I definitely do, and I love it.
I mean, me too.
I do think Murderbot can be unreliable. Murderbot would hate me for saying that.
Murderbot would be the pettiest person right now and be like, can you believe she said that about me?
I cannot believe you said that. You are terrible at security.
Well, Laura, it's not your day job, so it's not really your fault.
I am bad at security.
What did you think of the return of Rathi and Grothin?
So Rathi was very cute, and he was trying so hard to like help and be the person like, I can help. Can I see some of those reports and things like that? And
can I look at those?
No, you cannot see these. These are sealed documents, like for not your eyes. And
I feel like you asking if you could help me with a trial. Could I look at that? No,
no, like you can't. And I just think that Rathi is like the well-meaning friend that always wants to help out someone when he can. Grothin is definitely the one that is going to question everything. And Murderbot knew this and got exactly what it needed from them in order to keep moving forward and be accepted by Inda, because then it was able to prove its own competency, even though it said, I'm extremely competent. You should trust me, basically.
Gosh.
How did you feel about their return?
I loved it so much. I felt like if we're talking about Inda being the Barney Fife, that's his name, right?
Barney Fife, yeah.
If we're discussing them as that, I feel like those two were kind of like Tweedledee and Tweedledum of the group in this book. Or no, that's the bad comparison.
But they're like, they were just like the people that Murderbot used.
Sidekicks. They're just sidekicks. They're sidekicks in this where they're like, I'm here to do this. And Murderbot's like, sure you are, sweetie.
Murderbot's like, who can I use in 2 seconds and be done with? I know. Rathi and Garothin.
Well, Murderbot, I love that Murderbot's like, I need someone who trusts me the most and someone who doesn't trust me at all. I know. And it's like, Murderbot, come on.
Murderbot never gives Garothin any credit.
No, but Murderbot's not really giving Rathi any credit because it's like, oh, he's just the biggest fan of me. He never thinks.
He'll like, never question me.
Murderbot, like, hi.
But the thing is, they do kind of work out this same way that Murderbot said they would. So there's that.
I mean, it does end up working out in Murderbot's favor. Yeah. You are right.
Yeah. Dr. Mensa is in this a little bit as well. Kind of tells Murderbot, shut it a couple times. You're not helping your own case.
I feel bad because like we know from the next book, Mensa's in a hard place right now. So I'm just like, oh, every time she's on screen, I just feel for her.
Yeah. Mensa is going through a lot. And honestly, so is Murderbot, because you know that they're both going to basically be starting therapy. So it's kind of interesting that they're going through this shared trauma and they're trying to navigate what to do in terms of keeping Mensa safe and keeping themselves healthy. So that's a really interesting like background dynamic that we don't get in this book, but no.
I do understand why people say to swap number 5 and 6 after reading them. Because not only on a timeline does it work, but it also does kind of, I don't know, it puts like a sad sheen over this entire book to know what's I will say coming.
Though, like reading it the way that we did, I do think it's interesting to know that background and to have that information about Dr. Mensa. Yeah. That it just, you know, you are allowed a little more empathy into her situation.
Yeah, I know. It's fascinating. And I like that we read it the way we did, but it just makes me sad to know like, oh, this is coming. Poor kids. They just want everything to be better.
There was also Investigator Aylin.
Yes. I'm not gonna lie, putting 2 new people there, like Aylin and Inda, I didn't stand a chance of ever knowing who Aylin was.
Yeah, wasn't this the situation where you couldn't remember their names and then there was like all these targets and I'm like, I don't know which target we're talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I think target 3 was the like mouthy
target
one.
4 was a really chatty one.
Okay, target
that they were going to send over to talk to someone and reveal some information kind of as bait.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I don't know. There's too many names in this book for me, but like that's also the name of a murder mystery game. Like you have to have all these moving characters who could potentially be murderers.
I feel like it's also the sci-fi game. There's so many different names in sci-fi media that you have to know. So I get it.
Yeah. So, but I did like that we got to see like a couple new people in this book because it's always fun to have Murderbot like working
it's
off
nice to
someone
just
else.
have different interactions with people and not always the same, like Garathan and I don't get along and I can't understand why, and we're so much alike, it doesn't make sense. Like that kind of thing all the time gets boring. Or Dr. Mensa constantly, that kind of interaction could get boring. But it's interesting to see people interact with other types of people because that's how real life is. And again, Martha Wells, anthropology major, is all about interactions with people and knows how to write them. So good job, Martha.
I do feel bad that like we keep having to see over and over again how many people like undermine Murderbot like at the start, where they're like, oh, well, it's a construct and it's evil. And I'm like, I want people to start like not undermining Murderbot's personhood. Like I want Murderbot to be other people who it doesn't have to convince that it deserves to like be in the room. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for in the next book. But that's
hopefully that will come. I mean,
that's our season finale discussion.
I also
of what
think
we'd
that
like to
is
see
reflective of other people's real world experience, whether they be of a different race or gender or of like any kind of different than the have any kind of difference about them rather than the normal like cis het white this that blah, blah like keep going able-bodied experience. Then a lot of times their experience is treated differently and they're not treated as a person. So I forever, honestly, and there are circles that accept them, but I think that Murderbot's experience, even though it does get hard to continue to read it, it seems so real and reflective of people in real life.
Right. No, I agree. It's interesting. It's difficult. What
did you think of our murderer?
I loved that, like, I thought it was so funny that this book just ends with the murderer being discovered and then it's like, oh, its entire purpose was fulfilled, so it's done now.
Yeah, just self-destruct. Boom.
Boom. It's over. I loved that. And I was like, wow, they did not think through those instructions at all. They should have thought that through a little bit more. I
think it's a cool thing that we point out in this, that Murderbot continues to underestimate other constructs.
Yes.
Every time always underestimates other constructs, like, oh, they're stupid, oh, they could never have feelings, or they could never have a friend, or they could never be smarter than me or know this more, they could never like want to do this or that or the other. And this is a perfect example of like Balin being totally off of Murderbot's radar, because it just kind of like minds its own business for a while and is just like, I don't lift things. And Murderbot's like, you are useless, and just like walks away like, where are Rothian and Garoth, and I need somebody to help me get on with this case or whatever. But it's definitely right there in everyone's face that they should have just been like, what's going on here with this thing?
Well, and it's also like, I don't know, it's the belief that like, it's almost like Murderbot is constantly hoisted by its own petard by thinking it's like very special, even though it tries to remind us that it's not special at all. Yeah. Like, it's always like, I'm not special. Lots of constructs can do this, but I'm also the only one who's ever thought to do this in the world of anything. And it's like, Murderbot, like, you're not thinking big enough, or you're thinking too little. Like, you're not finding that happy medium. And so I do think it's very interesting that like having Balin be the murderer is so fun, because Murderbot's like, well, it was right under our noses the whole time. We should have known. Balin like did this and this and this, and it was all very suspect. And it's like, and Murderbot's like, but no one thought to question, because they assumed that all like androids or constructs or like robots would want to escape if they gave the chance. So they were imputing too many humanistic like beliefs onto like these bots without having any questions, and Murderbot just accepted that as a reality because it thought like, I'm smarter than that, it's fine, and like but I do think,
which is interesting that it's willing to take on so many of these like not culture but feelings that humans have about constructs and willing to accept them when it is a construct and has defied so many expectations that it's so willing to just be like, no, they could never, you don't want
well, I
any
think
of this.
that's like, it goes back to what you're saying about like, you know, Martha Wells didn't intend for this, but like this you can read like different anthropological like studies onto this, the way people can have like self-hatred for their own races or their own like disability. Like there are many ways you can have self-hatred,
right?
And Murderbot definitely is a proponent of that, because I think it has a lot of self-loathing, that it like pushes those beliefs that have been pushed on it its entire life outwards, and like it has to believe that it's special. But I think like throughout the series, as it goes along, as long as Martha Wells wants to continue doing it, I think like Murderbot will continuously learn like it is not seeing bots and constructs for all they are. And I actually think like if we're getting another novella, and it's going to be Murderbot and Art, and I think Art is more willing to see those things, because Art has like a lot more thought process when it comes to that stuff of like, well, I think of things in a much deeper way, and Murderbot's like, no, things are straightforward, and it's because of like how they were treated and like what they were like. Part of it is like what they were built for. Like Murderbot was built to be a murdering construct,
right?
And so it is hard to like unlearn certain parts of yourself if you're told your entire like life that this is what all constructs are created for. Like you could defy it and still believe like, well, that was the purpose I was made for, though. So it's hard to get away from it. I was just able to do it. It's like, well, maybe all of them want to get away from it, or maybe it like no construct is the same, Murderbot, and like some will be on your level and others will not be, and it's just all like up to the construct and how their belief system works. But like,
and we mentioned it previously, like, is Murderbot going to be the one that helps other constructs like make this kind of monumental change? Are we going to see that in future novellas, or is this going, and do we need to be putting that on Murderbot? Is that something that we should be doing, or is it something that is not going to happen and Murderbot's just going to kind of go along doing its own thing and living its own life? These are all good questions.
Well, I think it'll be interesting to have Murderbot with Art, where they'll also have like philosophical discussions, because I think in Art's perspective, it's like, no, you do the best for the greater good and you want to have people learn. And Murderbot's like, maybe I don't want to do that. Like, I'm only willing to do so much. And isn't that okay too? And it's like, yeah, it should be. But, you know, that's not always the case. So I think Martha Wells just hits it out of the park with these novels, like hitting at all the big themes.
Agreed. I love Martha Wells.
I love Murderbot.
So smart. So smart.
Well, do you have any final thoughts for Fugitive Telemetry?
Blah, blah, blah. I really like this. Honestly, if I'm gonna read the same book over and over again, I may want just several murder mysteries.
Yeah.
Because I think that this was maybe the most fun out of the novellas.
Yes.
And not that the other ones weren't fun, because they definitely were fun. And Murderbot is so snarky and sarcastic throughout all of them that they were a lot of fun. And also Art is a lot of fun too. Oh, yeah. But I do think that this one was just more of a romp than the other novellas. And I could read several different Murderbot murder mystery novellas.
Same. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was well done. I really think Martha Wells just like should keep writing Murderbot mysteries.
Yeah.
Have a little offshoot. Like we're no longer doing diaries. We're just doing gumshoe murder mysteries, Murderbot murder mysteries. And I really adored this book. I thought it was a ton of fun. I thought we still had a ton of the themes that we've been talking about. And I can't wait to see what she does next with this series.
I'm really curious about some of Wells's other work. Yeah. Because she's written a lot of fantasy, and I did get the free download of the beginning of Witch King, which is her new book that's coming out soon. Yeah. I haven't read it yet, but it's like 20 pages or something that they released early. And I'm really curious because just from this book specifically, I was really impressed with how we could see a genre shift in Wells's writing. Even though it was still science fiction, there's all this language and everything that seems really technical. It's still overall more of a mystery than the other books have been, and I'm really curious to see how Wells writes other genres that don't have all the science dialogue.
I can't wait to see it. Yeah, we should definitely read more of her books on the pod eventually.
Yeah. Maybe we should do like a Patreon episode or two.
Yeah,
like
maybe
read one of her fantasy books and then we can cover it on the Patreon.
Yeah, which is a good plug for our Patreon, guys. Sign up for bonus episodes. We may be covering The Witch King or something along the likes of it for Martha Wells. Yeah. So let us know if that's something you're interested in seeing. And with that, we are coming into like the final closing of this part of our season. We'll be back for the next book, of course. But guys, like, this is it. We have one more episode of the Murderbot Diaries.
We're going to be covering everything that we've done so far.
And final thoughts, that'll be coming out April 19th, because next week we have a special guest interview. Should I announce it or should it be a surprise, Laura?
Let's announce it.
Let's announce it. Okay. So next week, a day early, we will not be doing on Wednesdays we read. We'll be on Tuesdays we discuss books with authors, because we will be talking to Fonda Lee with her new novella, our new best friend. Yes, she doesn't get a choice in this. Fonda Lee has a new novella coming out. It is
on April 11th.
On April 11th, Untethered Sky. It is a wonderful novel. Both Laura and I read it, and we recorded an interview with her with no spoilers, so you're definitely free to listen to it. We give like a general like, oh, this is the plot. Here are a couple questions we have about background and characters, but like nothing deep, nothing at all. So you should be safe to listen to it.
Right.
She was amazing. So
I love Fonda so much.
Fonda and Laura were like kindred spirits. I felt it in the interview.
I think Fonda is just someone who is so sweet and nice and cool.
So cool.
I've heard so many different interviews with Fonda, and I'm just like such a fan.
Well, we had this interview set up before we even knew we were covering Jade City, but like it's a good way to get everyone excited for Jade City to have an author interview with her. So listen to that next week, April 11th.
Fonda's like such a celeb too. I felt like I was totally out of my element. Like, wow, we're interviewing a celebrity. It
did feel
amazing.
Very big when I was talking to people. So we're super excited for that. Pre-order Untethered Sky and get it ready for next week, because it'll be huge. And then we are going to be doing our season 3 finale the week after. So that will be on April 12th, and then April 19th.
April 19th will be our season
April
finale.
19th. I'm so sorry. April 19th is our season finale. And then
we start our indie mission.
Well, no, before that, we have April 26th. We're probably going to have Sean Gibson on to do the part of the dragon. Was mostly true. We're having an interview with him for the fact that he's getting a re-release of his hardcover. So make sure you guys are ordering a copy of that.
I love that cover so much.
Gorgeous. But we can't wait to have him on. We're scheduling that as we speak, but we should
Sean
do
is
that.
Such a nice human. I love him.
He's so lovely. And then we'll be doing 3 weeks in May on Indie Mission, Miss Percy's Pocket Guide to the Care and Feeding of British Dragons by Quenby Olson. So make sure you're also getting a copy of those. It looks so cute. It looks so cozy. And we'll be hosting a giveaway on that book as well. Just a small reminder, we host a giveaway on the Indie Mission book. So I have a copy of that ordered. It's coming my way.
I just got mine, and I got the second one because I knew I was going to love the first one.
Right.
So I was like, better get the travel guide as well.
And so as a reminder, we split up the plot episodes and characters and themes, and then we should be having Quenby on for that as well. So those are just a little bit of, wrap up, letting you guys know what's on the horizon, because we have most of April and May, and then we go into season 4. Jade City by Fonda Lee. She's back, baby. So we're so excited for all of this. We can't wait for you guys to be a part of it, and just let us know what you'd like to see, whether it's on the Patreon or on here. If you have books for us to read, I have one of the Patreon members' book picks. I picked it up from the library, so that should be on the horizon as well. So guys, $3, $5, and $10. $5 and $10 gets you a bonus episode every month, and we have a ton of fun doing it. So sign up for all those things, and also rate, review, and subscribe. If you don't want to, or if you can't, give anything to the Patreon right now, we totally understand, but rate, review, and subscribe. It really helps us out. It really gets people talking about us.
And share.
And
share our blog posts, share our posts that we put out, share our episodes. We really appreciate that.
We really do appreciate it.
Do that, and that you so even listen.
I know it's just amazing that you guys are all here. We've been having a ton of fun over the past 2 years. Wow. It's been 2 years.
Wow. We never weird to think about. Things.
I know we've
said that before, but it's so true.
It's
the only
so
thing
true.
that we can stick to is saying we never stick to things.
But yeah, so this has been a fun 2 years. It's a fun way to end season 3. We can't wait to cover Indie Mission Volume 3, and for all everything in between. Thank you all. And make sure you're following us on all the social platforms, OWWR Pod, on Twitter, Instagram, Hive, or email us at ourpod@gmail.com. I mostly answer them. Our blog, where we keep posting blog posts. So we thank you everyone who reaches out, who offers books. We love it so much. So thank you, everyone. And we can't wait to have you guys join us next week for an interview with Fonda Lee. Woo! Woo! All right, bye, everyone.
Bye.